Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You On. Thanks for logging on. Throw on your leisure suits, or should I say your racing suits, because we're looking back to the early 1970s motorsports era with this Oris Chronoris Chronograph, 40 millimeters in stainless steel. This is a resurrection of a bit of an icon from one of the smaller special interest watchmakers in Switzerland. In business since 1904, out of Hölstein, canton of Basel country, Oris is a small, privately held firm owned by the Herzog family since 1927 and still run by them, again, privately to this day. They have a unique way of doing things. Their styles are individual. They're distinctive of Oris. And the 1970 Oris Chronoris Star, a watch specifically tailored towards motorsports applications, is the inspiration for this Chronoris that we're viewing today. Now on the wrist, you can see that this watch is the very picture of the early 70s. It seemed like that was a real flowering of motorsports watches. You had a whole three-headed monster from Heuer with the Autavia, the Monaco, the Carerra. You had a lot of funky shapes like the cushion case, Omega Speedmaster Mark II racing dial, and while Rolex's Daytona wasn't new, it was very much a player, and it was, after all, in the early 1970s that Paul Newman was given his by wife Joanne Woodward and took to the tracks in his own right. So this was something of a golden era for the motorsports chronograph, kind of a high point just before the fall, just before the quartz crisis. And there are a lot of distinctive 70s styling elements evident in this Oris Chronoris. First and foremost, I want to call out the color scheme, because it seems like a black and orange color palette, or at least a black and high-vis, high-contrast color palette, is distinctive of that era, and chronographs, especially those for motorsports, sold during that era. Moreover, you can see the broadly perforated strap. It is inspired by automotive upholstery, but in its giant perforations, I mean they're far larger than automotive upholstery, and that awesome two-tone black and orange, it's got a little bit of a 70s vibe in its own right. It's a lot of large perforated straps with garish colors and high clashing contrast were popular at the time. Now they're considered period pieces today and highly prized by collectors, avidly sought. I've actually missed out on a couple on eBay. So make no mistake, this is a look that has legs, and it's considered to be a little bit iconic, definitely charming today. The cushion case is another icon. Cushion cases sort of saw their heyday in the late 60s, early to mid 70s, and this Oris Chronoris is no exception. On my wrist, which is 6.3 inches in circumference, 16 centimeters, who might be watching this from the track at Monaco, the bottom line is that this watch fits quite easily. It'll look appropriate on just about any wrist because it's got a good deal of span. It doesn't taper off to spindly lugs. It actually tapers off to a little bit of a stubby conclusion at each end, which means that it extends its mass just a little bit further than your average 40mm sports watch. It's pretty thick, not gonna lie. It's got an automatic winding 7750 base movement inside, and it's got a chronograph module that's unique to Oris on the top, so it's got a little bit of heft to it. Not heavy, nicely balanced out. It does have a full deployant clasp to counterbalance the weight of the case, but there's not an excessive amount of mass here, just a feeling of solidity and substance. One thing that I really like about the look of the case is the contrast in the finishes. It's polished on the side, and then the sort of chamfered shoulder of the watch also has a high polish finish, but then the tops of the cushion lugs and the cushion flanks are brushed, and it really plays to great effect in the light. It breaks up the considerable mass of the case, and it's a clever aesthetic wrinkle by the Oris design team. Now the dial is the star of the show. The original Oris Chronoris Star did not feature this sort of monocounter at 12 o'clock. I should clarify, what it is a 30-minute minutes counter. The original had seconds only. What you have here is a combination of center seconds and chronograph minutes at 12 o'clock. I'm going to energize this guy, just make sure he's got some juice to go. And then I'm going to show you, in action, the watch offers tremendous legibility. A motorsports-inspired tachometer scale traces the outer circumference of the dial, and then you have a minute track just inboard of that in high contrast colors. The bottom line is that this is the picture of early 70s motorsports chronograph design, but with the added evolution of the 30-minute counter at 12. The idea being that when seconds count and fractions of seconds count just as much, 30 minutes is realistically the longest time span you're ever going to measure with this type of chronograph. And I don't fault Oris's logic. It also keeps the dial beautifully clean and nicely balanced. There is a date window at 6 o'clock, so there's an awful lot of utility here. Between the automatic winding, the chronograph that offers more than enough recording capacity to be useful in many different scenarios, not just motorsports. The fact that it is a robust piece, water resistance rated to 50 meters, so you could take it for shallow swims, not dives, but surface swims. This is a watch that you could wear just about all the time. It's a fantastic piece, and because the watch also comes with an accessory metal bracelet as well as a tool to install it, you have that versatility again to wear the watch in just about any situation, even in the kind of hot, sweaty weather where you might prefer to lay off your leather strap and put metal or rubber in just to take the brunt of the burden. The bottom line is that you have that option with this watch because it has a 100% complete and very extensive and very rich accessory kit. Now I want to call out one aspect of the watch's water resistance that I particularly like. Oris, in designing this watch for 5 ATM water resistance, also devised what they call their quick lock crown. It's basically a crown that is a screw-in, but features so little travel in the course of its threading, it's literally a push-in, half-turn, fully locked, half-turn, unlocked. Spring-loaded, it pops out. It's very user-friendly because it's large and the coining is quite pronounced. You can grip this when you have sweaty fingers, when you're wearing gloves, when your hands might be wet, and because there's so little travel in the course of the threading, you really don't have to fight with it endlessly to get it in and out. I like it. It's an ergonomic success. It's a technical success. This is a real innovation. I would say that this Oris Chronoris is a fantastic tribute watch that works well as an everyday practical timepiece. Its orange accents are muted. They're subdued. They could work in a more formal attire if you were to fit the watch with its accessory bracelet. Now the bracelet is a beautifully built piece. It has a lot of heft and substance to it. There is no imbalance when the watch is on the wrist with the strap and the deployant buckle, but I would say that overall it's hard to beat a bracelet and a clasp for perfect balance. It adds just that much more integration to the case in as much as the end links conform fully, and it's a gorgeous, very distinctly different look that really makes this read as a different watch. That, I think, even more than its ability to deal with water, even more than its capacity to deal with sweat, is where Oris adds the value, including both the bracelet and the strap. You truly can transform the aesthetic of the watch from relatively happy-go-lucky and light-hearted to quite formal, quite sober, simply by swapping out the bracelet using the included tool. Now, if you like early 70s watches, or if you want to discover what the early 70s scene was all about, back when the trackside scene included characters like Steve McQueen and Paul Newman themselves, you want to check out this Oris Chronoris 40mm in stainless steel with a 100% complete factory set, all of the manuals, the documents of provenance, all of the factory packaging from Oris, as well as that accessory metal bracelet and the tool to swap it out. It even includes a carrying case of leather with accessory spring bars for the strap swapping, just in case you lose some in the process. This is a remarkably complete package for a remarkably versatile historic tribute watch. And if all that sounds good to you, this Oris Chronoris in 40mm stainless steel just may be the watch you want.